Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Women of the Blues Stories from the Road panel discussion. I'm going to turn this over to our moderator, Mr. Hugh Southern from Blue Mountain Artists. Thank y'all so much for coming.
Hey, look who's here. Okay.
Hello, Candye Kane. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the incredible Candye Kane that just joined us. That's right. Candye?
Sorry I was late. Just call me Candy. That's my name. Candice Kane is my name. So when people call me Candye Kane, it's like, hi Lisa Man, how are you, Lisa Man?
Everybody calls me Lisa Man. Nobody calls me Lisa.
What was the question? About guys, the husbands not wanting...
Having kids and how it affects your family and travel when you're on.
Oh, well, I didn't start traveling until my youngest son was 6, because I heard the formative years of childhood are until 5. So I stayed home until he was 6, and then I started touring. But until he was 6, I just played locally at home in San Diego, and I played at the Belly Up every Friday, and I played wherever I could get gigs, and that was fine. But both of my kids grew up on stage and backstage. My sons, I have pictures of them sleeping backstage at the Grand Emporium in Kansas City, and pictures of them sleeping backstage at the Clearwater Club in Dallas, and Tommy serving Jell-O shooters with the waitress at the Clearview. And then the kids both wanted to be on stage, and so, especially Tommy, the younger one. So he had a top hat, and he would come out and do this whole little thing when he was like 6 or 7, and do this bow with his drumsticks, and he would conduct. Ironically, now he's a music teacher, and he's conducting, and he likes that a whole lot. But they were both show kids, and there were lots and lots of people with opinions about that. People who would tell me I was a bad mother, that one lady at the House of Blues, after Tommy was on stage, she said, how dare you exploit that child and make him get on stage? And I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about. And I just walked away. I'm not going to argue with people who have their own stupid opinion based on nothing. I mean, my son begged me to get on stage, and he would cry if he couldn't get on stage. So, I let them get on stage as much as possible, and with their dad, who was in a band called the Paladins, and both of them were on stage all the time. I think that show business is a good place for kids, and as long as you're a responsible parent and you make sure that they get enough sleep, and that you have toys to introduce at different times of the day and night, and that you make sure you prepare by bringing blankets and pillows for them, and making sure they're safe. You can always find someone in the bar, like a good waitress or a nice, bartender, or someone who will help you check on them when you're on stage. And you can also, run back there during a guitar solo, and Laura just loves that, and check on the kids. And it doesn't, I don't think it's a detriment as long as you're responsible. It's like any job. If you bring your child to your factory where you work, then you have to be really careful to watch your child at the factory so they don't get hurt. And it's the same thing with music. Just be responsible and be a good parent.
Do you think people have gotten a little better about it as time's gone on, and they're getting a little bit more used to females out on the road, bringing their families, doing this type of thing, or is it kind of stuck in the ground?
Maybe. I mean, my friend Anna Popovich is bringing her babies all over the place now, and she's really happy with it, and both of the kids seem really well adjusted, and so far so good. They're pretty little still to find out, but both my kids grew up to be musicians, and neither one of them ever got in any trouble with the law. They never did drugs early, but they both grew up around a lot of colorful people, stepping over musicians who were sleeping on the living room floor, and they were around drag queens at an early age, and a lot of different artists and stuff like that. So they really were eclectic, and grew up around eclectic people, and it taught them diversity, and taught them to accept all people and to look at them as people and not as a drag queen and an artist, so that was a good thing. And I don't know if it's changed. I don't know if Anna's getting weird negative comments like I did, sometimes. But I bet it has changed because times have changed and people aren't quite as, uptight maybe about, kids. Kids should be allowed to be in bars with their parents. I've always thought that would make our music scene much bigger and better. It's wrong. In Europe, kids, a full 3 generations come to the show, grandmothers and their daughters and their babies. I mean, it's great. They love music. They know so much about American blues, and they can really keep the blues alive in Europe, and we could learn from that and do the same thing here in the U.S. But it would take strong lobbying and people who are really devoted to that issue. And I don't know that we're going to find that in this economy.
I had an artist by the name of Joanna Connor that I worked with, and she took her children out on the road with her, and she was very professional about letting people know in advance that the child's father was the bass player. They had everything set up for it, but particularly going through the South, I got some nasty phone calls about it afterwards, and people calling me up, I guess thinking man to man, saying things to me that I'd love to got to the phone real quick on them, because it was awful. And that was 15, 20 years ago, and I just hope it's changed for the sake of you women who want to be on the road. And again, as you said earlier, if you're working in a factory and you bring a child, you have to be careful. If you're working in a club, you have to be careful. But if you're doing your job as a parent.
What a weird sexist thing that somebody would call you and say something about it. I mean, I'm sure they're not calling men and saying, how dare you leave your child at home while you're
Absolutely
on the road with
not.
your... I mean, that's a double standard that shouldn't exist now anymore.
I'm surprised to hear that. I never got anything negative. I'd have Alex doing the merch when she was little with her little zany, brainy
Right,
cash
and nobody
register.
could sell more than a child.
Oh man, she holds the record. She was like 8. It's true. I didn't get any of those kind of negative things. I think if I did, I probably would have said, okay, see ya, because your kids come first. But it's really cool, like what Candye was saying, is having my daughter, having gig kids, they learn so much about just seeing people who they are instead, and they don't have that kind of fear, and I don't know how old yours are, and mine's 21, but she's a really cool human, having been a gig kid. It's a nice thing.
And Candye, we started off before you were up here just talking about kind of the history of women in the blues business and kind of looking at maybe how it's changed or it hasn't. I was asking how come there's so few women that are in the business and the difficulties, but as you think about back to when you were starting, do you think there were walls put in front of you because of your gender, or do you think, and if so, do you think those walls have pulled back a little bit?
Well, I think it was more like a weird anti-sexuality thing that was going on back in, the maybe early 80s when I first started singing, and then the early 90s when I was making records and touring a lot. Like, for instance, I was in a newspaper with one of my record covers, A Whole Lot of Love. I had a very big boobs, and I had a big cleavage on that record cover. And somebody complained about the poster that was in the restaurant that showed the cleavage, so they put a big black bar over my cleavage. And then when it appeared in the newspaper, they printed it the same way and put a big black bar over my cleavage again in the newspaper ad, and yet the ad was right next to the Macy's underwear ad for, and all these skinny women were wearing, underwear, bras and panties, and I was wearing a dress with very low cleavage, and I was censored. So there was a whole big controversy about censorship, and I wrote this big essay about it, and I got into big debates about censorship and how it works, and sexuality and how it sells records and stuff like that. And I don't know if that's changed that much. I think that there's still, I just saw something on Facebook the other day, some dumb internet like essay or question and answer or something, comments about women using sex to sell records. And I don't know that it's necessarily us that decide to use our sexuality to sell records as much as it is record companies and managers and things like that. Sex does sell. If it didn't, then people like Madonna would not have had careers early on. And it's, you know, she's a fantastic businesswoman and really has made her career amazing. But in the beginning, it was about corsets and about, you know, underwear and about the things that she was wearing more than it was about what she was singing and saying. And now I think it's maybe reversed a little bit. Now she's kind of become an age role model, and I'm not sure she's happy about that, but she's. I don't know that that's changed. It's probably a good question for these young ladies because for me it hasn't changed much. I mean, I've changed, and in that I don't care as much about what people think entirely. I still get worried about it, but it's more musical. I'm more worried if they think I suck than if they think that my outfit's too revealing or whatever.
Well, I think it's important to start talking about what we can do to change it instead of how it was then and how it's changed now. It's important to think about, like, well, a lot of times I'm on a lot of people's, a lot of DJs' listservs, you know. So I'll get a lot of playlists, and sometimes I'll look at it. It's a sausage fest. It's like 20 male artists in a row, and maybe there'll be one artist in there. And then I've been to some festivals, which actually, you know, kind of appreciate it in a way, that have an all-male lineup on a major stage, and then they have a women's showcase that's separate. So, you know, which was actually, it was pretty cool, but, you know, I'd rather see, you know, just some effort, if we just keep it in the back of our minds. You know, imagine if there were a soul blues showcase, you know, where they had all the black artists over here and the white artists over here, that people would go, whoa, that's kind of weird. You know, so we just need to think about, you know, DJs can think about, you know, maybe we should put some more women on this playlist, and booking agents can, like you said, they're asking for more female artists. And also there are some out there that are pretty obscure, and, you know, they could use a leg up, and they get booked to a major festival, they get mixed in, people get, you know, more of a variety of people on the stage, and that person gets, you know, gets a leg up too, so then we have more women in the business. So, you know, it's really a collective effort on the part of booking agents, of DJs, you know, all those people, just keeping that in the back of their mind. Well, no, do I have a mix of people?
Well, as long as audiences continue to buy tickets to events that are all male and don't object, then that's going to keep happening. I mean, it's not really up to booking agents, I don't think. I think it's more up to the public to say, we don't accept it this way. Last year it was all men, the year before it was all men, where's the women? And they could easily ask, or they certainly do. I've heard lots of people, you know, get into the white versus black debate in blues, and they certainly are quick to talk about that issue and that there's not enough black artists in blues, and they could do the same thing with women, and they should. They as long as the public accepts it and buys tickets to events like that, it's not going to change.
We have come a long way since the time when there was literally a barrier where they would say, we only play 10% female artists on this radio station.
Yeah.
That's what Hart was told. Hart was told, we will not play you, you know, more often because we only play 10% female. These are radio stations that told Hart this.
There's still radios like country music. There was something released recently about a country radio only playing a really low percentage of women because people just didn't like it. Like, that's what they thought. And I mean, I think the female perspective is necessary in music. I think people want it, you know. So we have to collectively change that. All of us, fans, artists, agents, everybody together. You know, you have to want it.
And there seems to be, gratefully out there, that there seems to be a rising, a lot more young females and a lot more young blues artists in general. I'm just blown away by Samantha and Selwyn and Jerikas and this whole line of new people that have entered into the fray. I was nervous 4 or 5 years ago. You know, I lost 5 musicians in 1 year, passed away. And, you know, you lose Pinetop Perkins, Hubert Sumlin, Michael Burks, Willie Smith, and Ann Raps in a period of 11 months. You start wondering, ouch, you know, are we getting old? But then I've seen this beautiful new entry into the field, and I just hope that this encourages more women to join and more young people to accept this is not their grandfather's music. This music is whatever you make it. So I would like the ladies to give me any information or give the audience any more information they would like us to know, and then I'd like to open it up for some questions for people. So, ladies, is there anything else as agent, manager, fan, buyers that we need to know about your plight out there as you're trying to work through your career?
I'm playing at the pool at 1:30.
Good answer.
Drink a lot of water.
Stay up for the 2 to 4 a.m. jam.